Hey friends, Ash here with Gents, and today I'm going to be going over with you guys my favorite designer fragrances from A to Z. So what I'm going to be doing is picking out one designer fragrance house per each letter to be my favorite, to represent that letter. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, it'll make sense in just a second, so let's jump into it. So there's a lot to go over, so I'm gonna make this really quick and not spend too much time on each one of these, or else this video is going to be way too long. First up is A, and for A, my designer house choice is going to be Azzaro. Yes, Azzaro. Some of the other ones that I could have chosen were maybe Aramis or Abercrombie and Fitch, but I'm going with Azzaro. For me, Azzaro is the most important fragrance house that starts with the letter A, at least designer-wise, and they've got some great fragrances like Azzaro Pour Homme, they've got the Azzaro Wanted line, and many others. So Azzaro. Now let's go to B, and for B, I'm gonna have to choose Burberry. Some of the other houses that I could have chosen were Bottega Veneta or Bentley, and I will mention these other houses as I go along, just so you know I didn't forget about them. Burberry is not a house that maybe gets a whole lot of love. They do have the Mr. Burberry line, they've got the Burberry Brit line, Burberry Touch. For me, Burberry London is my favorite, and that's who I'm going with for B. Now, we're starting to get into some of the big boys, C. And for C, gotta go with Chanel. There's also Coach, Comme des Garçons, Cartier, Carolina Herrera. Lots of houses start with the letter C. Calvin Klein also, actually can't forget them. But Chanel has got to be the choice, right? Chanel has just tons of hits, and the quality of Chanel almost unsurpassed in the designer realm. Gonna take me to D, and for D, I'm going with Dior. Now, you could cry foul and say, no, Dior is Christian Dior, but nowadays they just put Dior on their bottles, and their website is dior.com, so we're just gonna pretend that Dior is a D for this list. Could have also gone with Dolce & Gabbana or Dunhill, if you want to consider Dunhill a D, or Davidoff, but for me it's got to be Dior. Classics like Fahrenheit, Dior Homme Intense, Dior Homme, Eau Sauvage, and on and on. Now for E, not a whole lot of heavy hitters for E, but I'm going Elie Saab. Elie Saab has a great line of fragrances that was perfumed by Francis Kurkdjian, and that really is what's going to give them the edge. Other fragrance brands could have been English Laundry or even Emmanuel Ungaro. There's another one that I could have included as an E, but we'll talk about that later and why I didn't. Now to F, and for F, I'm actually going with Ferrari. Yeah, the car brand, because they have some really nice fragrances. They're not very expensive, that are extremely versatile and actually smell really nice for the price. Another brand I could have chosen is Fendi, if Fendi had not just discontinued all of their men's fragrances. That being said, Ferrari probably still would have gotten the nod. Okay, G, gotta be Giorgio Armani. Yeah, I mean, I love Acqua di Gio. It's a fragrance that I wore like crazy when I was a teen. That's really the main reason I love Acqua di Gio, I guess. That built-in nostalgia factor. But there are also other hits that they've had. Of course, the Code line is enormous. I love Code Absolute. Talk about it all the time. So Giorgio Armani, and there are some other heavy hitters here. There's Gucci, there's Givenchy. So some big houses here at G, but it's got to be Giorgio Armani. Now we are to H, and this one pretty easy. Hermes. It's got to be Hermes. The quality of those fragrances, sky high. Hermes is right up there with Chanel, right up there with Dior. Some people would say actually above Chanel and Dior in terms of quality. And maybe actually above Chanel and Dior as far as originality goes. Other fragrance houses that have H would be Hugo Boss and Halston, but Hermes pretty easily gets the nod over those. Now we are to I, and this one is really, really easy. It's about the only choice that I think you could logically make for I, and it's Issey Miyake. There's really not a whole lot else in the I's. Yeah, there's Izod. Yeah, that's about it. And this is a house that I love, especially their cool weather fragrances. They have some great scents based around resins and amber, some darker cool weather fragrances, and of course they have L'Odyssey and the summer flankers. So it's a great house, Issey Miyake. Okay, we are on J, and for J, it's gonna be Jean Paul Gaultier. Could have also gone with Jimmy Choo, but really, I don't think too many people are gonna take Jimmy Choo over Jean Paul Gaultier. even if you're not a huge fan of Le Mans and the many flankers that have come out since Le Mans' release, you've got to at least give Jean-Paul Gaultier some credit for being a real player in the whole fragrance world. Now, to their credit, sort of, they've tried to get away from Le Mans and they've done some other fragrances, but they didn't really work. Now we're to K, and for K, gonna be Kenzo for me. Could have been Kenneth Cole, could have been Karl Lagerfeld, but I think overall Kenzo is the better fragrance house. We don't have really heavy hitters necessarily here at K, but Kenzo is one that has released a number of fragrances that I have enjoyed over the years, even if they're not necessarily showstoppers. I like the bottle design as well, and Kenzo Homme is solid, the original. Now we are to L, and for this one, gonna be Lalique. Yeah, Lalique. Of course, the Ancre Noir line, but they have other solid fragrances as well, like Hommage à l'Homme. Other L's could have been Lacoste or Lancôme, but for me, Lalique has got to be the way to go, especially when you consider the quality of those fragrances at the price you can pick them up for at discounters. On to M, and for M, gonna be Mugler. Now, once upon a time, it would have been Terry Mugler, would have been a T, but now it's just Mugler. Other houses, Mont Blanc, Michael Kors, could have mentioned those. Mont Blanc came in second on this one. Mugler, for me, is really just all about A-Man and the flankers. Now, Alien Man and those flankers, you know, take it or leave it. But Pure Malt, Pure Havane, that's really what gave Mugler the nod. And of course, doesn't hurt that they have Mugler cologne. On to N, and for me, Narciso Rodriguez. Yeah, Nautica is solid for cheap summertime fragrances, but overall as a fragrance house, I think Narciso Rodriguez just kills Nautica. It's not a fragrance house that necessarily gets talked about a ton. I mean, a lot of people know about Narciso Rodriguez. I'm not pretending like it's some unknown house or anything like that, because it's not. But they don't get talked about a whole lot. And in general, each one of their releases is solid. We're on to O, and there's not a lot to choose from. I'm gonna go with Original Penguin for this one. Shows you how much there's to choose from at O. Could have also gone with maybe Old Navy, like the Old Navy fragrances that they sell in their store. So yeah, Original Penguin. They're cheap, and they usually smell cheap, but you know, they can be okay in a pinch. Got some decent summertime fragrances, so Original Penguin for O. Now we are to P. This one was really difficult for me. I'm going with Prada. Of course, I could have also gone with Paco Rabanne. This one for me, I think, was the tightest race. I had them like this. Yeah, this one was tough. Prada, of course, known for their soapy, fresh, clean fragrances. Paco Rabanne takes more chances than Prada does. They also made Invictus, which has apparently reproduced with like half the designer fragrance brands out there, because there's Invictus DNA in everything. On to Q, and for Q, I got nothing. Maybe Queen Latifah. Doesn't really do it for men's fragrances though, does it? Yeah, I don't know. On to R, and for R, it's gonna be Ralph Lauren. Of course, the Polo fragrances. Those fragrances have been huge. They've sold God knows how many bottles of those. There's also Robert Graham and Roberto Cavalli in the R's, but realistically, they can't really compete with Ralph Lauren. And let's not forget Purple Label, which smells similar to Bleecker Street. On to S, and for S, going with Salvatore Ferragamo, and I don't really have another S, so Salvatore Ferragamo for S. And Salvatore Ferragamo, another house you can pick up heavily discounted, and typically that makes it where they're goodbye. On to T, this one is easy, Tom Ford. Gotta be Tom Ford, especially if you take into account the private blends. Easy win. I mean, Tom Ford is up against Ted Lapidus, Tommy Hilfiger. Yeah, it's a pretty easy win for Tom Ford. Oh wait, and Trussardi. Can't forget Trussardi. On to U, and for U, gotta go with Usher. Can't really think of anything else for U. So Usher it is. Now to V, and there's a few good ones at V. I'm gonna go with Versace. Versace is a house that I really loved when I was younger. Versace Pour Homme is a fragrance I wore heavily. Versace Eros I bought when it was brand new. So Versace is gonna get the nod for me here, and also the Dreamer. It's a fragrance I've loved for a long time. Other houses, of course, Victor and Rolf and Valentino, but for me, Versace for those three. Now we come up on W and X, and I got nothing. Yeah, I got nothing. So this is A to Z, except for a few letters that I just don't know what to do with. Now we get to Y. Y is extremely easy. It's Yves Saint Laurent, YSL. I mean, not much competition really. There's Yardley as a fragrance house in the Ys, but yeah, they can't even hold a candle to YSL. I mean, YSL is one of the biggest fragrance brands out there. So yeah, easy win for Yves Saint Laurent. La Nuit de L'Homme, all the millions of flankers. Yeah, and of course, Y, EDT, EDP, and Y Live. I mean, Y Live. Now we're to Z, and this is the fragrance house that I said I could have put in the E's, but I kind of cheated a little bit and put it in the Z's. It's Zegna, and that's gonna be my choice for Z. The other choices were Zadig and Voltaire and Zara, and I took everything into account. I was like, let me just go ahead and move that to the Z's, and it'll make everything nice. So Zegna, gonna be my choice for Z. They've got a number of different fragrances that are quite nice, especially considering the price, and overall, slightly overlooked cheapy house. That's gonna do it for me, and that's gonna wrap up my favorite designer houses from A to Z. And I'm gonna do the same thing for niche and indie houses as well in the near future. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for all your support. And if one of you out there is a YouTuber and you want to do the same thing, feel free, go for it. Stay safe out there, guys. See you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See ya.